Good evening. Shikamo, Namaskar, Excellencies, fellow members of India International Center and the Working Group on Alternative Strategies. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the seminar on India-Africa Partnership, The Way Forward. Kindly rise for the African Union Anthem and the National Anthem.
Let us all unite and celebrate together the victories won for our liberation. Let us dedicate ourselves to rise together to defend our liberty and unity. All sons and daughters of Africa, flesh of the sun and flesh of the sky, let us make Africa the tree of life. Let us all unite and sing together to uphold the bonds that frame our destiny. Let us dedicate ourselves to fight together for lasting peace and justice on earth. All sons and daughters of Africa, flesh of the sun and flesh of the sky, let us make Africa the tree of life. Let us all unite and join together to give the best we have to Africa, the cradle of mankind and font of culture, our pride and hope at break of dawn. All sons and daughters of Africa, flesh of the sun and flesh of the sky, let us make Africa the tree of life. जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उज्जल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जनगण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे
Today's seminar has been organized by India International Center and the Working Group on Alternative Strategies on the eve of the 4th India-Africa Forum Summit. Like the pre-summit seminars, IIC and the Working Group had co-hosted before the IAFS2 in May 2011 and the IAFS3 in October 2015. Now, I, Suhas Borker, as the convener of the Working Group on Alternative Strategies, have the honor to welcome our distinguished panel of speakers today. Please welcome respected Shri N. Vohra, Life Trustee of IIC. Shri Sudhakar Dalela, Secretary Economic Relations, Ministry of External Affairs. Ambassador Gurjit Singh, former Indian Ambassador to the African Union. His Excellency Mohamed Malki, Dean of African Diplomatic Corps and Ambassador Kingdom of Morocco. Her Excellency Anisa Kapfi Mbega, High Commissioner, United Republic of Tanzania. Mr. Cedrick Charles Crowley, Deputy High Commissioner, Republic of South Africa. Ms. Ruchita Beri, Senior Fellow, Vivekananda International Foundation and former President, African Studies Association of India. Today we honor our distinguished guests with Angavastrams. These Angavastrams are made by our artisans in Salem in Tamil Nadu and are called Ganga Jamuna and represent our plural traditions, very much like the plural traditions of Africa. So while we honor our distinguished guests, we honor our artisans too. I have the honor to present the Angavastram to IIC Live Trustee, Shri N.N. Vohra. I request Shri Vijay Naik to present the Angavastram to Secretary Economic Relations MEA, Shri Sudhakar Dalela. Ms. Liz Matthew to present Angavastram to Ambassador Gurjit Singh. Shri Vinay Thakur to present Angavastram to Ambassador of Morocco, His Excellency Mohamed Malki. Dr. Naseem to present Angavastram to Her Excellency Commissioner of Tanzania, Anisa Kapfi Mbega. Shri Sudhir Bhutani to present the Angavastram to Deputy High Commissioner of South Africa, Mr. Cedrick Charles Crowley. No, not yes, come here. Shri Lalit Agarwal to present the Angavastram to Ms. Ruchita Beri, who has played an important role in organizing this seminar. IIC President Ambassador Sham Saran could not join us today as he was traveling. He has sent a message which I would request Dr. Usha Munshi, the Chief Librarian of IIC, to kindly read out.
Excellencies, distinguished representatives of the nations of Africa and India, eminent thought leaders and honored guests, it's a privilege to convey the message of Ambassador Sham Saran, President of the India International Center. He extends his warm greetings to all the participants and commends this summit for fostering dialogue, cooperation and a shared vision for the future of Global South. With your permission, sir, I shall now read the message. I'm glad that India International Center and the Working Group on Alternative Strategies are co-hosting the Pre-India Africa Forum Summit 4th Seminar on India-Africa Partnership and the Way Ahead, like they did for the IFS 2nd in 2011 and for the IFS 3rd in 2015. At the India International Center, our core values are rooted in promoting understanding and amity between different communities of the world. In this meeting of minds, we have had long-standing engagement with Africa. In 1996, we hosted an international conference on understanding Africa, India, and South-South cooperation, which was inaugurated by President Julius Nyerere of Tanzania And in 2020, we hosted another international conference on understanding Africa continuity and change with an inaugural address by M. Olabihi Babalola Joseph Ye, former chairman of UNESCO's executive board. India and Africa have had a long-standing partnership from the Bandung Conference in 1955, during the anti-colonial struggle and the anti-apartheid movement, leading up to our joint efforts today in advancing Africa Agenda 2063 and the Sustainable Development Goals. A historic milestone in our partnership was India's G20 presidency in 2023. India successfully championed the inclusion of the African Union as a permanent member of the G20. This landmark step has given the over 1.4 billion Africans a permanent seat at the high table of global economic governance, a powerful demonstration of our shared commitment to reform of multilateral institutions and amplifying the voice of the global South. Today, under the theme of IFS 4th Spirit, which is India-Africa Strategic Partnership for Innovation, Resilience, and Inclusive Transformation, we are poised to take our cooperation to a new level. India remains firmly committed to working with Africa not just as a partner, but as a fellow architect of a more equitable, multipolar world order. I warmly congratulate the organizers, Shri Suhas Borker, Ms. Ruchita Beri, and their team for convening this timely seminar. I'm confident that your deliberations will generate valuable ideas and actionable recommendations that will enrich the official IFS 4th process. On behalf of the India International Center, I extend my best wishes for the success of this seminar and for the outstanding success of IFS 4. May your discussion strengthen the enduring bonds of friendship and solidarity between India and Africa and continue meaningfully to building a more peaceful, prosperous, and equitable world. Shamsaran, President, India International Center. With these words, I conclude the reading of this message. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you, Dr. Munshi. Before I request Shri Vohra to give his inaugural address, I would like to briefly make a few points. IIC had a long-standing engagement with Africa since its very inception, as our President Shri Shamsaran just mentioned in his message. In our central quadrangle stands an epochal sculpture, The Captive, honoring the icon of Africa, Nelson Mandela. This sculpture, made by the renowned Indian sculptor Amarnath Sehgal, was commissioned by the UN to mark the International Anti-Apartheid Conference in 1986 in Paris. The original captive is now in Robben Island, while we have the replica here. Exactly 30 years ago, in 1996, February, IIC organized the International Conference on Understanding Africa under the leadership of Shri N.N. Vohra. As mentioned, this conference was inaugurated by Tanzanian President Julius Nyerere. We celebrate the birthday of Madiba at IIC every year on July 18th, with students drawn from schools across the National Capital Territory of Delhi. We have instituted a Nelson Mandela annual lecture at IIC in collaboration with the South African High Commission. We had the honor to receive the legendary African leader, Sam Nujmo, here at IIC. In fact, I had the honor to interview him here, and that interview was telecast nationally. In August 2020, to mark the 40th anniversary of SADC, South African Development Community, we organized a special webinar. Those were COVID days, with participation from Africa and India, Madam High Commissioner Mbega, then Tanzanian High Commissioner Barak Luanda, who was the chair of SADC Missions Group in New Delhi, coordinated with us, and it was a great success. The list is long, but I just want to share a few of the meetings we have organized jointly. We truly regard Africa as what Jawaharlal Nehru called a sister continent, and we salute Africa, which transformed the barrister Gandhi into a revolutionary freedom fighter and the father of our nation. Thank you. Now I request Shri N. Vohra to kindly give the inaugural address.
Excellencies, distinguished participants and speakers, and all our friends from Africa and India. On the eve of the 4th India-Africa Forum Summit, I welcome all of you to this evening's seminar on India-Africa Partnership and the Way Ahead. This event, as you just heard from Mr. Borker, has been organized by the Working Group on Alternative Strategies in collaboration with the India International Center, and you just heard the message of the President of the Center, Mr. Saran, who is not here today. I recall that the Working Group on Alternative Strategies had organized similar events before the 2nd and 3rd summits in 2011 and 15 respectively. As some of you who have been here before also would know, the India International Center has for very many years now, in fact, ever since its inception, been committed, deeply committed to fostering deeper understandings and continuing engagements with African countries. And as Mr. Borker mentioned a minute ago, in 1996, we had very large participation from Africa, from African countries, on a theme of India-Africa South-South cooperation. And the wonderful papers which were presented that time were compiled in the form of a book which is available in our library. Much later, almost a quarter of a century later, in 2020, we had another very major gathering of African scholars, researchers, and we had a very useful, valuable seminar, Understanding Africa, Continuity and Change. The papers presented at this get-together are also now available in the shape of a book, which both these books are lying here. So I briefly reiterate that through conferences, lectures, discussions, sustained interactions with African friends, experts and scholars, the India International Center has worked all these past years to build bridges of knowledge and shared perspectives. Today's seminar continues this tradition by bringing together diverse voices to reflect on the evolving partnership between India and Africa. India and Africa are connected by deep historical bonds, ancient maritime trade routes, common colonial experiences, joint struggle for freedom, and shared aspirations for development, justice, and dignity. Our ties are further strengthened by vibrant people-to-people connections, similar demographic opportunities, and the common challenges we face in regard to security, climate change, and sustainable growth. Together, we share a vision of a peaceful, democratic, rule-based global order which is founded on the ideals of equality, freedom, and mutual respect. We have gathered here today, ladies and gentlemen, not merely as partners of the present, but as heirs to a relationship that spans millennia, one forged across the Indian Ocean, tested by history, and now poised for a future of shared prosperity. India has consistently advocated for a stronger African voice in global governance and championed the African Union's permanent membership in the G20 during India's presidency in 2023. This was a landmark step in fundamentally strengthening the global South. India's development partnership with Africa is firmly anchored in Africa's own priorities. Our approach is guided by the African Union's Agenda 2063 and is built on 10 guiding principles that emphasize sustained engagement, capacity building, local ownership, increased trade and investment, digital transformation, agricultural productivity, climate action, security cooperation, youth empowerment, and the pursuit of a more representative global order. In practice, this partnership is visible across multiple domains. Through the Indian Technical and Economic Cooperation, that is the ITEC program, lines of credit, grant assistance, the Pan-African e-network, the flagship e-Vidya Bharati and e-Arogya Bharati, initiatives in tele-education and telemedicine, India continues to support human resource development and bridging of the digital divide in Africa. We remain committed to harnessing our experience to help Africa realize its immense potential in agriculture, digital economy, and sustainable development. On the security front, India has consistently stood with Africa. Our substantial contribution to UN peacekeeping operations in the continent is well known. We are also working closely with African partners to strengthen maritime security in the Western Indian Ocean under the aegis of Mahasagar, mutual and holistic advancement for security and growth across regions. Cooperation in countering terrorism, cyber threats, and other emerging challenges remains a priority. The past decade has seen a significant intensification of political engagements marked by high-level visits, prompt humanitarian and medical assistance, and strengthened bilateral and continental level cooperation. The three previous India-Africa Forum summits, held in 2008, 11 and 15, have laid a very strong foundation. Thus, the upcoming fourth summit is not merely a continuation, but a vital opportunity to redefine and elevate our partnership in a rapidly changing global landscape. As we prepare for the fourth summit in New Delhi later this month, we stand on a solid foundation of trust and delivery. The story of India and Africa is one of enduring friendship, from ancient vows crossing the ocean to modern partnerships with the African Union, delivering projects, scholarships, and institutions. We have always been more than neighbors. We are family. Ladies and gentlemen, as we deliberate in the seminar, I am confident that your discussions will generate valuable insights and practical recommendations will flow to further enrich the India-Africa partnership. The India International Centre and all of us here remain deeply invested in the India-Africa partnership for mutual progress and prosperity. I pray that the deliberations begin with hope and purpose. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for that inaugural address, which has a lot of depth and a lot of meaning and will guide us through the proceedings of the seminar. Before I call upon Shri Sudhakar Dalela to give his keynote address, I just want to make 3 points for the consideration of the seminar, because Shri Dalela has to rush off immediately after his speech. We appreciate his presence here in spite of his very busy schedule. He's been in organizing the 4th IAFS and after the BRICS back-to-back meetings. The first point, which is in fact waiting implementation since IAFS 2, 2011, is that we should help organize an office of the African Union in New Delhi to fast-track the India-Africa partnership. This has been a long-standing point put forward by IA Track 2. The second point which I would like to make is that a regular annual dialogue with the AU at the foreign minister level should be taking place so that we don't have to wait for these long periods of time to evaluate and further strengthen our ties. The third point and the last point I want to wish to make is what the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's policy regarding space diplomacy. This now needs to be replicated in Africa. India can replicate the South Asian experience of space diplomacy, whereas in the case of South Asia, India's provision of a single satellite could suffice. In the case of Africa, ISRO may have to provide multiple satellites to cover the entire African continent in its footprint. A roadmap with tangible milestones and timelines is required. India shall have the first mover advantage in making the space bridge with dedicated India-Africa satellites, which shall undoubtedly transform Africa-India connectivity, especially media connectivity, and provide linkages encompassing the whole canvas of socio-economic and cultural exchanges, and bring Africa and India together in a never way imagined before. Thank you. Yours, floor. Fine.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Suhas, for inviting me for this very special engagement on India-Africa partnership, the way forward. Let me begin by conveying my respect to Shri N.N. Vohra, Life Trustee IIC. I'm delighted to see a number of High Commissioners and Ambassadors from African countries, including the Dean of the African Group, Ambassador Malki. Thank you very much for joining us this evening, Excellency. And I see a lot of my senior colleagues here, including Ambassador Gurjit Singh, Ambassador Saurabh, Ambassador Sanjay Bhattacharya, Ambassador Ajit Kumar, and many other experts and scholars in this group today. This group has tremendous amount of friendship for Africa, as I see among this audience. So thank you very much for inviting me, first of all, Dr. Suhas, for interacting with all of you. Of course, the India International Center has been in the forefront of fostering dialogue, exchange of ideas, and bringing people and communities together like this evening in shaping a very informed discourse and understanding. I would like to also thank the working group on alternative strategies, Dr. Suhas, that you chair and head, for your interest in Africa and your interest in Africa-India partnership. I have taken very careful note of your suggestions in the beginning as to what we can do more with Africa. And I would not like to prejudge the outcome of the summit, but I can only assure you that this summit will have ideas and initiatives that will really expand our partnership with Africa in a very significant manner. Well, friends, we are currently navigating really an uncertain global landscape characterized by shifting geopolitical dynamics and continuous or persistent economic headwinds. Against this complex backdrop, India and Africa, operating as two of the world's most dynamic engines of growth, are uniquely positioned to working together for a more balanced global architecture and harnessing the full potential of India-Africa partnership. As Dr. Vohra mentioned and you mentioned, India, of course, is hosting the 4th India-Africa Forum Summit end of this month in collaboration with the African Union Commission and our partners in Africa. The theme of the summit, as you mentioned also, is IA Spirit, India-Africa Strategic Partnership for Innovation, Resilience, and Inclusive Transformation, which reflects the evolving and comprehensive nature of our engagement. The India-Africa Forum Summit, which started in 2008, has served as an important platform for for dialogue and collaboration, guided by the principles of mutual respect, equality, solidarity, and shared prosperity. We are expecting a very good participation in this forthcoming summit. Of course, the summit will bring together leaders from across the African continent to further deepen the enduring India-Africa partnership and chart a roadmap for expanded cooperation across diverse sectors within the framework of South-South cooperation. I think all of you know that Africa is an emerging pole of global economic growth with the population of 1.4 billion people and the youth vibrancy, youth energy. This is a continent full of dynamism, hope, optimism, and commitment to grow as fast as possible. Dr. Vohra mentioned about Agenda 2063 of the African Union. It is a framework or the enduring Pan-African vision for an integrated, prosperous, and peaceful Africa, harnessing resources and capabilities for rapid economic growth on its own terms. The bold agenda of the African Union or the African region and this blueprint called Agenda 2063 analyzes the challenges and lay out African aspirations for an inclusive, people-centric approach and growth, sustainable development, good governance, and for a stronger voice of the Africa in global arena. They are into the second decade of the implementation of this 50-year plan, and they have aptly called this decade a decade of acceleration, having laid out the foundation of this 50-year blueprint in action. Africa's challenges also provide tremendous opportunities for collaboration for partners like India. Africa, I think all of you know, and African Development Bank has indicated it and mentioned it, that there are infrastructure financing gaps in Africa. The question is what kind of partnerships would be best suited to meet growing requirement for infrastructure development in Africa. The intra-African trade is limited as of now. Fostering regional value chains in pharmaceuticals, automotive sector, green energy can ensure that Africa moves up the value ladder. At the same time, climate-resilient agriculture, agro-technology, agro-processing centers, clusters can ensure food security and export competitiveness. The question is, will the African continental free trade area enable such economic transformation and create new economic opportunities for African businesses and also its partners like India? Digital infrastructure is emerging as a powerful sector in Africa, sector of opportunity, if I may say so. Technologies hubs in Africa, investment in fiber optics, backbones, data centers, and digital public infrastructure have the potential to improve financial inclusion, improve productivity, and deliver services to people in an efficient manner. Here also we can see a tremendous room for collaboration between India and Africa. Tourism, I think all of you know, has tremendous potential to open up new economic opportunities for growth and job creation. From safaris to historical sites to cultural melting pots, Africa has a lot to offer to the world. Connectivity and infrastructure development will be crucial in realizing this full potential. To convert the demographic dividend into an economic engine of growth, what strategies Africa is pursuing in terms of higher education and vocational training, we would like to hear from our friends who are present here today, and we look forward to their perspective and thoughts as to how India and Africa can be partner in the space of human capital development, knowledge partnership, innovation partnership, tech partnership. The continent holds significant global mineral reserves, critical for electric vehicle batteries and green technologies for the world. The key question therefore remains, how can international partnerships create genuine co-development and co-creation and add value and build human capital? Well, I think laying out the growth trajectory of Africa and the potential that Africa holds for the world, I would like to also delve a little bit about where we are in terms of India-Africa partnership today. I think as Dr. Vohra mentioned, India and Africa share centuries-old historical ties rooted in cultural and people-to-people exchanges, trade, and mutual respect. We both have experienced challenges of colonialism and we stood together in the struggle for freedom and independence. Today, this shared history continues to inform a partnership grounded in solidarity and common desire to grow faster. Our ambitious targets and framework for development, we in India have Viksit Bharat. We want to become a developed economy by 2047 when we celebrate 100 years of India's independence. And Africa has a 50-year blueprint of becoming a developed continent as a whole by 2063. And these two developmental paradigms or developmental framework gives us a chance, an opportunity to see how we can work together to help each other grow as rapidly as possible, share our development experiences, and co-create our future for shared prosperity. I would like to also say that over the past decade, our engagement with the African continent has really expanded significantly, marked by regular high-level exchanges, growing diplomatic presence, and deeper cooperation across sectors. If I have to give you a number, in the last 10 years, we have had at least 150 high-level visits at the level of head of state and head of government, both ways. Our leadership has visited Africa in many places, and similarly, we have had a chance to welcome and our guests, our partners from Africa to India on multiple occasions. And that also provides us, these visits become really sort of, I would say, gives us a chance and opportunity to really scale up our cooperation with individual countries. And we are very happy that we could really had very good exchanges in the last few years. I think all of you perhaps would also know that we have opened up 17 new missions in Africa in the last 7-8 years since 2018. And we have now today missions in 46 countries in Africa, including in all regions of Africa, we have our diplomatic presence. And that also allows us to understand the region better, understand their requirement better, understand also the opportunity that exists for scaling up our cooperation with the countries in that region. I think Dr. Suhas, you mentioned, or in the statement of Ambassador Shamsaran, there was a mention of the need for African voice to be heard at the global platform where decisions are taken, and we both India and Africa have a shared vision for more inclusive and representative global order, and we have consistently supported reforms in the global governance institutions, particularly the UN Security Council. India has championed Africa's rightful place in global decision-making processes, and as you mentioned, during India's G20 presidency 3 years back, a historic milestone was achieved with the admission of the African Union as a permanent member of the G20. We are very proud of this landmark event taking place in Delhi during our chairship, and I'm very confident that the African Union also sees it that way. I would like to also perhaps say that we also are very active at the economic front with Africa. We are among the top 5 trading and investment partners of Africa. Our trade basket is increasingly diversified. We have a balanced trade with Africa. We provide duty-free access to least developed countries from global south, including 33 countries from Africa. And we are collaborating in sectors such as energy, pharmaceuticals, agrotechnology, automobiles, digital services, and manufacturing. We are privileged to be partner of Africa on the development side. We have supported projects in power generation, water supply, agriculture, transport, technology, and digital connectivity. And we are really indeed very proud of our cooperation with Africa in the space of development. Digital public infrastructure, technology, fintech solutions, cooperation in agriculture and health, empowering medium and small and medium enterprises. These are the new areas or new frontiers of cooperation with Africa. At the same time, we are also trying to push the envelope for cooperating with Africa in the field of agriculture, health, education, startup ecosystems, clean energy, and technology. And I hope that these are the areas where you will see new initiatives between India and Africa to advance our collaboration across these sectors. All in all, the point I'm making is that we do see a tremendous potential for expanding our economic cooperation with Africa as a whole. And we would like to also, while expanding our cooperation, focus on building local capacities and value addition, which will be, as I said, would be important for both India and for Africa. India, I must also say that in the defense and security arena, I think Dr. Vohra did mention about this collaboration also briefly in his opening remarks. We are working very closely with African partners to enhance maritime security, combat piracy. We conduct joint defense exercises with Africa. We have tremendous amount of capacity building initiative, and we of course contribute to UN peacekeeping efforts in Africa. As of now, we have roughly more than 4,000 our Indian soldiers deployed in UN peacekeeping operations in Africa. We are collaborating in climate action, sustainability, and renewable energy also in contemporary times. I must also say that African nations have been very supportive of India-led initiatives such as International Solar Alliance, the Global Biofuel Alliance, the Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure, and the International Big Cat Alliance. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, more than 35 countries from Africa have already joined International Solar Alliance, which is a very large number, and we see a huge potential for collaboration with Africa in the area of renewable energy. I think I mentioned to you mention about human resource development. This is a core, I would say, pillar of India-Africa partnership for many years. I would say it is at the heart of India-Africa partnership, the human resource development. We do have a number of programs for scholarship, for skilling. Our flagship program, ITEC, under that we welcome every year 7,000 to 8,000 officers, professionals, students to come and get training in India, and we are very proud of this partnership with Africa. I think equally important are the strong cultural and people-to-people connections between India and Africa. That includes the education, tourism, traditional medicine, yoga, art, and I was peeping through your papers. You have a paper on media, so there also we are trying to sort of build partnership with Africa. So I think so all in all, I would say that we have it's really a very robust and very strong partnership with Africa. In the last 7, 8, 10 years, 12 years, this partnership has expanded tremendously across sectors, and as we enter into the 4th India-Africa Forum Summit, I think we have a robust platform on which we can build upon, and we would like to hear in the summit our African leaders, foreign ministers, secretaries, to share their perspective as to what more we can do. We would like to hear them out. I would like to also mention that in this summit, we have also invited regional economic communities. Before the OAU and African Union was born, you had a number of regional economic communities in Africa, whether it's COMESA, ECOWAS, or SADC, and they have a long history of cooperation in different parts of Africa, including North Africa. And I'm very happy that a number of colleagues from these institutions will also be participating in the summit. So all in all, I would say we are really going to celebrate our friendship with Africa in the month of May. We are very excited to welcome the African leaders to India, and I'm absolutely confident that this platform will give us a number of ideas on which we can expand our partnership with Africa. We are very determined to make our collaboration with the African region even stronger, sharing our development experience, capabilities, and capacities with each other. And I'm very happy that IIC has maintained a tradition of having this get-together before each summit. And I'm deeply grateful to you, sir, for hosting this gathering this evening, bringing everybody together. I see a number of friends and familiar faces here who are really invested in Africa, whether it's Delhi University or JNU or think tanks in India or young people who are focusing on Africa. And IIC has provided them today this platform to brainstorm what more we can do with Africa. And we are, as I said earlier, very committed to making sure that this partnership enter into a new phase of shared prosperity and development. And I would like to also thank, since we have few high commissioners and ambassadors from Africa today here, I would like to also thank them because we have been working with them in the last 3-4 months very actively, and they have been very supportive. Ambassador Malki, thank you very much for your leadership in steering the Africa group in Delhi, and you have been a great support to Ministry of External Affairs in making sure that we communicate better with all the missions here as we start to prepare and to welcome African leaders in Delhi. So once again, thank you very much, sir, for inviting me today. And Dr. Suhas, thank you very much. I'm delighted to see this brilliant panel on my side, going to discuss about different facets of Africa-India partnership. And I would like to also say before I conclude that we are also doing a number of activities in the next few days, starting with the India-Africa Music and Dance Festival in Bharat Mandapam, where we have about 70 artists from Africa, from different parts of Africa, going to perform with Indian artists. And then we have a think tank dialogue coming up, which is being organized by the ICWA. We have India-Africa Business Exhibition and Business Dialogue, where we are having more than 500, 600 business community strong leaders from Africa. So all in all, I would say, as I mentioned earlier, and we have had recently a program, since you mentioned about space technology, we had a program with all the head of mission from Africa, organized by the ISRO and InSpace, which is the sort of private sector arm of space industry. And we do have a space collaboration with Africa, but we would like to do more. And this event was to hear them out and see what more we can do in the space technology. How can we harness the space technology for development, the way we have done in India, and how we can replicate, and how can we share our expertise to the African continent. So all in all, this will be, I think, 23rd, if I'm not mistaken, the Dance and Music Festival. And the dialogue will start from 22nd, this Friday. And the business exhibition is from 28th of May. We have a website for the benefit of colleagues and friends here. We have a website on the summit, iafs2026.in. We have loaded a lot of information about what we intend to do. I think Dr. Vohra mentioned about the Kampala principles, which was outlined by our Prime Minister while addressing Ugandan Parliament in 2018. And we have given full details so that our young population, young people, students, and scholars can also study them and tell us as to what we can do more under each principle that we have outlined for our engagement with Africa. So with these words, I would like to once again thank Dr. Suhas, Dr. Vohra, and Ambassador Shamsaran for taking this initiative and bringing such a large group of colleagues and friends who believe in Africa and India-Africa friendship together. I would like to also thank all of you for giving us a snippet of how IIC has been connected with Africa. You mentioned about the sort of artifact dedicated to Nelson Mandela. I think this very, very heartwarming to understand and to learn about these connections that we have with Africa. We have so many roads in the name of African leaders in India. If we do a story about this, it also shows our sentiment in India about Africa. And as I said, we are very proud of that connection with Africa. You mentioned that we are a sister continent. We indeed are natural partners, close friends, equal partners, I would say. And I would say that there are limitless opportunities to work together. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Secretary Dalela, for taking out time, first of all, because we know how packed your schedule is, but very nice of you to join us. And I hope we'll send you a set of recommendations of the seminar, and then we'll go forward on that. Thank you very much. Thank you. So can I now request Ambassador Gurjit Singh to take the floor? He's been on this journey with the India-Africa Forum Summit right from when he was posted in Addis Ababa, 2005, 2009. And so go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Vohra, sir. Thank you, Suhas. Thank you, Secretary ER, for your very encouraging remarks. We look forward to the successful conclusion of the summit. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. This morning when I spoke about SDGs between India and Africa. So as a good diplomat, I could just repeat that speech, but I think I should say something different. So I am going to talk about the institutionalization of the India-Africa partnership and how that has weakened. When the India-Africa summit was launched, now you can Google my name and see the article I've written on how the summit was born. I can tell you that this was only because of the African Union initiative. It was not an Indian initiative. It was an AU initiative. It was not an Africa initiative. It was an AU initiative to expand partnerships. And when they came after the Banjul format, we were the first country they wanted. I have documented that because I was there. The second thing was, at that stage, had Africa said, we want all 50 countries to come, India's answer would have been no thank you. It is because Konare told Pranab Mukherjee, the then EM, that 15 countries will come, and we said, oh, 15, great, we can do this. So today we may demand that all 54 should come, but the moment you do all 54, you end up in a counting exercise. How many came to the Chinese one? How many came to the Japanese one? How many are coming mine? Every day you are less worried about the agenda. Ambassador, who's coming from your country? High Commissioner, who's coming? This is what you are doing. This is the problem when you go in for numbers. So, secondly, why should the relationship with the African Union wait for a summit? The relationship with Africa has not waited. Secretary said so. So many things are happening all through. But somewhere our relationship with the African Union disappeared. We were not the only ones to blame. The personalities of the leadership of the African Union Commission chairpersons for about 15 years have not been conducive to relating with India. And that is a fact. That is the reason the summit didn't take place. Of course, there was also COVID, and then they offered us Mauritania, who Mauritania did not want to host it. But the African Union kept saying Mauritania will host it. And these are absurd decisions. So they don't do this with any other partner. They do it with us. But this is also because we are the only global South partner who has a regular summit with the African Union. African Union has 7 designated summits. We are one of them, and we are the only global South. So I think when we talk of this enduring partnership, shared vision, this has to mean something. You can't then say, no, I'll do it like this, or the Chinese do it. No. We are not the same. Now, when you want to do an IAFS summit, you need the African Union. So when the African Union disappeared from our radar, and the Commission did not come back to our radar even after we admitted them to the G20, we need to understand this. They were missing till that gentleman left office, and the new Djibouti person came, who is very fond of India. And that is why you see when Mr. Dalela now goes and meets Muhammad Ali Yusuf, the AU chair, things are different, the atmosphere is different. So you have to deal with the AU Commission after every election differently. That is what we need to learn. But that is one thing. The other thing is that earlier, between the summits, there were many events. There used to be the visit of the Secretaries General of the Regional Economic Community. This used to be a separate standalone event. Stopped happening. I'm very happy to hear from Secretary ER that now at least they're all being invited to the summit. The second was we used to have an India-Africa Energy Conference, Health Summit, an Agriculture Summit. There were many like this. Somehow they all frittered away. The business in these segments grew. Health business grew, the agriculture business grew, but the institutions frittered away. So we have to rethink this, that instead of waiting for 5 years for the summit should be an agenda setting platform. After that, different people need to do, and don't look at the government to do everything. You get away from the government and do your thing. And don't look for the government to fund everything either. You must find your own funding. Therefore, I am a votary of private sector, academia, think tanks, industry to all come forward into something called the India Development Initiative. And their government funding should only be the seed. And that seed money should be leveraged by others to say, okay, you give me this and I will leverage so much more and we will take this forward. And so that is why the International Solar Alliance is actually a good way of taking the India-Africa partnership forward. And I think soon the new plans of the CDRI would also go in that direction, where it is not Government of India money, but other resources which are being channeled and going forward. And this trilateral resources should also be there. Now, besides these institutions, you look at the CII Africa Summit. That has also become doddering now. It doesn't really bring business people. It brings ministers. It doesn't bring too many African business. And you go there and you see the same Indian business people from the time I instituted this in 2005. It not changed. The problem is that Indian business in Africa has boomed. As Secretary said, we are the top 5 in trade and investment. But most of the people who are doing that trade and investment are based in Africa. And they are not members of our chambers in Delhi. So they get ignored in Delhi. So take your business events to Africa. Earlier, the CII conclave used to have regional versions. Every year, they went to some region, north, south, east, west, center. Center was always difficult, but everywhere else they went. Why don't we do this more often and involve people from the grassroots there who are actually leading the Indian investment and trade on that area, who are not known in Delhi. I went to Lumumbashi in February last year, and I met the Sikh brothers. I said, what are you guys doing here? They said, we are the best people to make railways for mining companies. We are Bombay based, but nobody in India knows us. But everybody in Mozambique and everybody in DRC knows us, because we do what the Chinese can't do. No, that is what you have there. These are your powerhouses. You must tap into them, but we don't know them. So this is where we need to act. Secondly, our engagement with new African institutions, or let us say newly relevant African institutions to us, like the CDC. Now, it is the health institution, or the AMA, the African Medicine Agency. Now, if you want your pharmaceuticals to succeed in Africa, you must engage with these two. Please remember that the liberalization of pharmaceutical trade is not covered by the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. Pharmaceuticals is not a subject under that. It is covered by the Africa Medical Agency, AMA. So you have to deal with these agencies. I have never heard of an Indian group dealing with CDC and AMA, but I was very happy to see that when the logo of this launched, among the partners, CDC is mentioned, which is very good. The last point I want to make before I close is that, to promote Indian private sector trade and investment, we should support African banks, particularly regional banks. So there is the TDB, the Trade and Development Bank, which is the bank for the Comesa region. It is now located in Nairobi. And there is the EBIT. It is the ECOWAS Bank for Infrastructure and Development, located in Abuja. That is the bank for the ECOWAS region. And there is an IDC in Southern Africa, but South Africa doesn't need more money. They can fund it themselves. But these two could do. Now, we should actually invest in them by taking a stake of, let's say, $100 million or $250 million. And if you do that, you will get a board position. If you get a board position, you can influence the specs of contracts, which helps Indian companies. They will be very happy to get you. TDB has Ukraine as a board member, not a board member, as an investor, but not India. Even in the Africa Development Bank, India's share of stake is 0.12%. We don't have a director. We are part of the Nordic constituency. We always have a Nordic director speaking for us. Why can we not raise our stake to at least 1% and 2% of the ADB's thing? Now, this is not easy anymore, because all the European countries have taken that stake. You have to go and buy it out of somebody. But nobody is thinking this out. So I think working with regional development banks, taking more institutions to Africa, and institutionalizing the mid-term engagement, but not through government, through private initiative, is very important. And say every 2.5 years at least do a real mid-term review at the government level. And in one of the papers that I have written, I have said, like Secretary said and Ambassador Malki, that we must engage the African diplomatic corps in Delhi and have a quarterly meeting with them to follow up the summit decisions and ask them for suggestions. Where will you help Indian academia, Indian think tanks, Indian private business, and what opportunities are there? And we should do this in Addis Ababa as well. And finally, I think think tanks. We need to set up an India-Africa think tank network. we need to set up an India-Africa news media network. Nowadays with Zoom and all that, this is very easy. You don't need money to actually go forth and all that. But we must do these things so you are exchanging views with them on a direct basis. I would like to stop there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Gurjit Singh, for that candid view. You know, that's very important. We should know where we exactly stand objectively. Thank you very much. Now I would request His Excellency Mohamed Malki to take the floor.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.
8 minutes, sir.
All right. Let me start first by thanking the India International Center for this important event at the eve of India-Africa Summit, the fourth one. But the casting, to be honest, is not fair, because to hear His Excellency Dalela and then to move to Gurjit, two big bullets coming at the same time in a very high speed doesn't leave us much space to speak about all the things. But I think me and him, I don't know if he knows it, have been associated with this forum since the beginning. At the first one, I was director, and then the second one, I was additional secretary in the ministry. So I've been following up the steps. But instead of going back a little bit into history, probably only 1 or 2 lines could set up and make our friends from the university a little bit aware, because it's important to go back to history just to understand a little bit the future and where we're going. So the first and then second summits were very important but limited. Something which probably I understood better after His Excellency Gurjit spoke. But I personally think differently from the way he is thinking. It's slightly a little pessimistic. I would say that the African Union or Commission doesn't have necessarily that much role to play. Why? Because I have always believed that India-Africa Summit is a bilateral exercise in a multilateral format. So it's not a multilateral format, okay? It's the basic of it, to put it very simply, we gather, we decide for lines of credit and a certain amount, countries present their projects. It can be, in fact, both ways. In other words, Morocco, being one of the leading partners in phosphates, for instance, fertilizers, has a very important model with India. We can also benefit from those lines of credit to invest in India. So I think there is no harm. That's why I believe that the role of the African Union has always, and probably should be for me, to reinforce their regional integration. That is, those things which cannot concern any country. If you ask any of my African colleagues, probably everybody would not be happy to see somebody else speaking on their behalf. That's why the format of Banjul format showed its limitation, and I'm extremely happy that the third one, it has enlarged. We are not talking about numbers, as you said. We will do it, whatever the number would come. Probably the date is slightly different because of the Eid, but we'll manage to that. When you have to decide, you will just decide. I could have also limited myself to what I said this morning and then in the event, and I have seen many faces who were there in the morning, in the IDSA. I will not leave it completely. As we say in Arabic, what can't be achieved completely shouldn't be left thoroughly. So I'll take parts of the morning, but also to engage into other things. I think for the last 10 years, which is the times between the third and the fourth summit, a lot of things have happened, both from India and then from the African side. Both have developed tremendously. The mentalities have changed. The kind of challenges has completely deformed even our thinking. The crises are very strange somehow, but in very small, if anywhere something happens, it affects more globally. That is a reality that we are facing. So the idea is how could we collaborate at least to reduce the influence of the impactful things that are around us. Needless to say how the West Asia is affecting all of us, all right? But also India and Africa have their objectives. One with the Agenda 2063, and then India becoming a developed country by 2047. How can we match these? Because usually, and this is not a blame that I am putting to my friends from India, we always think of what India could do to Africa, okay? There is also how India can do to Africa, how the Africa can do to India. There is tremendous. So if we go a little bit and then try to analyze, do you mind if you tell me how much I still have from the 8 minutes? 4 more minutes? So if I want to analyze, I would say that India certainly now possesses more technology than before, more expertise. It has used tremendously and then subtly the digital base and technology. Renewable energy is growing fast, and then that is a very smart move. Agriculture and space applications, all sectors highly relevant to Africa's development ambitions and the Agenda 63 are found in these developments that India is having. So there is a model that we can follow. But Africa itself has transformed tremendously from that time. There is a new generation of leaders which have a new approach, which they want to see based on win-win partnership, on more entrepreneurship, on joint risk-taking instead of receiving, but also where the lines and the mechanisms of credit should evaluate seriously, because there is a little bit of handicap. It's important to have these lines, but they have shown a little bit their limits because of the rigidity of the reimbursement, and sometimes we fall into very dogmatic or say just by administration. I'll open brackets and tell you how serious this is. There is a country which I will not name, which requested for line of credit of $15 million to build a hospital, an important one, okay? So the ambassador of this country has been running from right and left every time there is this paper missing, there is this thing not happening. The guy who was working with changed, and then there is a new guy, so he needs to start again. After 6 years, the hospital has been reevaluated to $25 million or 26. So 10 millions have been lost. So what they did, they made the same request to Japan, and they got the lines of credit in 21 days. After 6 years. This is shocking, because if we need to move, probably also we need to be competitive. Not necessarily as competitive as Japanese, but at least to make things very simple for people to move. Some flexibility in the mechanisms. Second thing, for Africa, this continent possesses the resources and the human capital that shape its own future. What it needs is seriously that partners who would respect its choices. So I don't say here, but that India doesn't respect the choice. I'm just talking about global saying that was said by His Majesty in 2015, but it is still valid today. We need to work on equal footing than perpetuating dependency, because the problem of all the countries and partners who have been with the Africans, they are working towards making it always dependent on them. So we need to make an evaluation. We need to grow together and then to make a win-win partnership. But also, Africa brings major strength to the partnership with India. It includes, of course, as all my predecessors have said, the natural resources, rare materials for the technology, for the future, for the EV cars. Their markets are growing, increasing innovation, and the youthful population expected to become the world's largest labor force by 2050. His Excellency Dalela spoke about the importance of cultural exchange. I think one of the excellent elements between the two sides is this element. We just need to reinforce it. But it exists through different mechanisms, including the technical programs and so forth. I would like to request you, because this morning I made some proposals in the way forward, which probably, if you allow me to just repeat them, because everybody seems to be interested in those few lines which I've suggested. They are four. I put them very in short. The first one, we need to deepen technology transfer through joint manufacturing, research and development hubs, and adaptation of Indian digital and renewable technologies in Africa. This is something that the two sides can do. We need to reform the financing mechanism by combining grants, equity investments, and more flexible concessional terms linked to development impacts rather than rapid repayment schedules. Third, to ensure full participation of all the 54 African countries in the future summits to create a genuinely inclusive continental platform, which is happening already. Fourth, last but not least, encourage triangle cooperation involving advanced African economies, such as my own country, which has developed strong expertise in banking, telecommunications, phosphates infrastructure, and intra-African investment. Let me conclude by saying that by building on the success and lessons of the IFS process, embracing win-win pragmatism and focusing on technology, flexibility, and inclusivity, we can unlock the future of shared prosperity, resilience, and global influence. Both regions have all the reasons to co-architect a better world and for their own development. I would like to thank you, stop here. I think I have gone a little bit 2 minutes more, but you would indulge in me. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, Ambassador Malki. Now I'd request Her Excellency Mbega, High Commissioner of Tanzania, to take the floor.
Namaste. Thank you. I would like to join previous speakers to extend our appreciation for this invitation and to be part of contributing to the forthcoming India-Africa Forum Summit. This summit comes at a defining moment and reflects the partnership between India-Africa, which is rooted historically and reflected now on the need to move the relationship from the goodwill, historical solidarity, to practical and measurable cooperation. The summit should therefore focus and agree to a clear implementation framework with timelines, responsible institutions, and measurable deliverables. Why do I say this? because India and Africa have a long shared historical ties based on anti-colonial solidarity, South-South cooperation, just like the previous speakers spoke about, and common positions on the global development issues. Now we need to move our priorities to convert this political will into concrete outcomes in areas such as trade, investment, industrial projects, skills development, technology partnership, and stronger institution follow-up. The summit should prioritize now moving beyond a buyer-seller relationship towards value addition, joint production, and regional value chains. India and Africa should support each other to process production of minerals, agricultural goods, pharmaceuticals, and food products locally rather than exporting raw materials, which has been a traditional practice. We have the Africa Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, and this is a changing commercial logic hub for Africa, which creates a larger integrated market. Our partners, India, should treat Africa not individually, but should treat Africa in terms of Africa Continental Free Trade Area as a one single integrated market with the potential of continental production, mass continental production, and consumer space with enough market. And therefore, we should support each other on areas such as customs modernization, special economic zones, standards harmonization in order to improve trade, and other manufacturing hubs in other areas. Africa has been a traditional raw materials supplier to India. Most of our products, we sell them in raw form, and I think this is a critical moment for us now to change the pattern and becoming not a source of raw materials per se, but we should also be a source of finished products. And therefore, we need to assist each other in terms of strengthening our production capacities and trade in a fair and equitable manner. We know that agriculture has continued to remain a central key area of African livelihoods, and India, in its expertise in agriculture, we know that India has undergone major transformation in agriculture area. It's positioned to assist African countries in terms of agriculture, improving, strengthening agriculture technology, sharing technology, in seed technology, climate smart agriculture. We had the presentation from ISRO, I think it was last week, at the External Affairs Ministry, and we got to know extensively what we can cooperate, our partnership in terms of space, in many areas, including agriculture, healthy, and other areas as well. So I think it's a high time now for India Africa to partner to to strengthen this partnership in this area so that we can improve our agriculture in our countries. Skills, education, and human capital. The chief guest has spoken extensively on that area, and I think this is a very crucial area. We understand and we appreciate, we extend our appreciation to the government of India for the extended scholarships through ITEC and ICSR programs. But I think also the summit can also go further to that and proposed an expanded vocational training center catered for university partnerships, professional exchange programs, digital learning platforms, and mutual recognition of qualifications in selected sectors. We also need to partner to cooperate our partnership in supporting of infrastructure development with sustainable financing. In order for investments and trade to work smoothly, Africa needs large-scale investment in roads, ports, railways, energy, digital network, and India is well positioned to assist on that area as it is very well advanced. So India's development cooperation through lines of credit, grants, concessional finance, and capacity building is a crucial to realization of this goal. In terms of maritime security and Indian Ocean cooperation, most of the African countries, especially those sharing the Indian Ocean with India, we need to have a strengthened partnership on that area in terms of maritime security. It should be one of our major priority, and especially for East Africa, because East Africa, most of the countries are sharing the Indian Ocean, the island states as well within the Indian Ocean, and those countries depending on sea trade. We can cooperate, we can extend our cooperation and cover the areas such as illegal fishing, maritime domain awareness, port security, disaster response, and blue economy. Blue economy, which is also a major focus area in most of these countries from Africa. We have spoken about people-to-people connections, and I think it's a very important aspect because our partnership is based on people-to-people connections. And how do we get the people-to-people connection? Through tourism, through education, and others. Healthy as well. India is one of the medical hubs, and most of the African countries come for treatment in India. So we have to encourage directly flights, joint tourism campaigns for some of the African countries in India. We have to simplify our visa processes, cultural festivals, film cooperation. India is very well advanced in film. We need to see how we can cooperate in film festivals, cooperation, and stronger engagement with Indian diaspora in Africa and African students in India. I think on the African students in India, we need to see we need to dig deeper on the problem facing by by the African students studying in India, and especially on the issue of visa and other issues. We need to see how we can. Okay, so thank you. I need to wind up. the forthcoming summit also, we should see, I understand the AI technology is the center of the summit, center of focus for the summit, and we need to closely cooperate on that for the Sustainable Development Goals, which is also aligned with the African Vision Agenda 2063 in terms of digital infrastructure development, research centers, startup innovation partnerships, just to mention few. I have to wind up quickly. Just to conclude, our key takeaway and proposed priorities, some of the proposed priorities for the India-African Partnership areas of focus should be to move from the historical friendship to a practical development compact. We should therefore focus on trade, investment, industrialization, technology, healthy agriculture, energy connectivity, skills, and global governance reforms. And we should also deliver a partnership that is not aid dependent, but one based on creation, co-creation, and local value addition, mutual respect, and measurable results. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. You raised the point about, High Commissioner, about people to people. Now, I just had a brief point to make that, some years back, we had a Lieutenant General as the High Commissioner of Nigeria. And he made a very valid point. He said, when I was sent as a young cadet to Sandhurst in the UK, and the family in Edinburgh welcomed me with open arms. Now, your homes and your families don't welcome us, So I think this is a very important point we have to make that, in fact, I had raised this question that the IIC should take the lead and some of our members should form groups and welcome African students who are studying here into our homes over weekends so that there is more assimilation and more interaction, And that's very important for a people-to-people contact. Now, Gurjit has not been too well, and he wants to leave, but he wants to just make a brief point, and then, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So I want to respond to Ambassador Malki about his emphasis on bilateral. So let me say, nowhere in my presentation did I not say bilateral is not important. Well, the Secretary has already told you everything happening bilateral. Bilateral is very important. That is where all the action takes place. I was talking about how the summit-to-summit institutionalization needs to take place. If you have the health summit, if you have the agriculture summit, the participants will all be bilateral. But you need to organize them. And if you want to react to African priorities, you must have a dialogue with the African Union, because that is where you are setting your priorities. The CADEP on agriculture, your health policy, your CDC, your climate policy are all decided in the African Union. So what I was saying was, let's not ignore the African Union. Let's not ignore the regional economic communities, but I never said the bilateral is not important. Bilateral is number one. Thank you. Thank you so much. Please pardon me, because of my health reasons, I must leave now. Thank you.
Okay. Cedrick, can you have the floor? Yeah, you want to? Yeah, please.
All right. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity. This thing is on, right? You can hear? Thank you for the opportunity, Professor Borker, to address us, and to all the esteemed panelists on the dais. Thank you for the opportunity to present with you. Now, a few days ago, I spoke at a different occasion at the University of Delhi on the issue of India-Africa partnership. And it was a question addressed to us, the future of this partnership. And today, we address almost a similar question about the way forward in terms of partnership. So let me I think our colleagues have given sufficient recommendations as to how the partnership can be taken forward. Let me for a short while just reflect on the importance of partnership. So both professors, both my colleague in Delhi and Professor Borker, raised similar questions. Now, either this is a test for me in terms of the consistency of my message and the coherence of our policy. And I think I should repeat the message, even though my dear friends from Delhi University, the students, it will be at their expense, because it will be more or less the second time that they hear this message. But I think this moment, this period that we are confronted with requires us to reflect on partnership, because we cannot take it for granted, right? I think when we look back, we can see even those that thought they were close allies, even more than partners, they were allies, are now questioning whether that relationship is there. So I think it's a time to reflect on partnership, the importance thereof. And I think in the context of India-Africa, I have 3 points to make. One is that this relationship is historic, it is not new. Secondly, it is here to stay. And thirdly, it will grow. So dear colleagues, let me start with the historical. It says that, and I'm here quoting an article by Global Cooperation Barometer of 2025. And why I focus on partnership, because this is an important SDG, SDG 17. So the importance of collaboration to address the global challenges that we are faced with is important, because we are interdependent. If you don't understand that, then at least COVID should be a wonderful reminder and reality check on how interrelated we are and how we as a global community should work together. So this study, the Global Cooperation Barometer, says that as the world transitions from what has been a stable post-Cold War global order to a new, more unsettled and unpredictable period, political and geopolitical turbulence has the potential to degrade cooperation efforts, but it does not need to be that way. And so I wish to confirm the last point, that it does not need, collaboration and partnership does not need to be degraded. It can be built, it can be strengthened, and that is the important point. So looking back at Bandung, when Africa and Asia came together, they elaborated the framework for what should be the foundation for South-South cooperation. It gave rise to NAM and the G77. So the issue of partnership I wish to contend is in our DNA. It's in your Sanskrit saying that says Vasudeva Kutumbakam. It is in the African philosophy of Ubuntu, I am because of you. It is in that African proverb that says, if you want to walk fast, you must walk alone. If you want to walk far, you must walk together. So the DNA is there, the DNA of partnership. The second point I want to make briefly is that this partnership is here to stay. India-Africa's summit takes place after 11 years. And this situation has changed dramatically since the last summit. It's 11 years ago. We now sit with a population of 1.5 billion people in Africa, 1.4 billion strong in India, 37% combined of the world population, GDP of 4 trillion in India, more or less, and close to 3.5 trillion. I said billion. It's trillion in India, and through the Africa Continental Framework, the potential to be 3.5 trillion in Africa. So that is my point, that this AI, and here I refer to Africa-India, a partnership is here to stay, and it is the future. You know, why is it this partnership important? Where we are faced globally with declining population numbers. In Asia, and especially India and Africa, those numbers are rising. In 2050, Africa will comprise 2.5 billion people. So where will the future market be? Where will your trade and your products go? It will definitely not be Europe or other parts of Asia, because those populations are declining. And therefore, we have a selfish interest to collaborate and to cooperate for our own well-being and benefit and prosperity. So that was my second point. The third point, this partnership will grow. It will expand in scope, in format, and in terms of strategic importance. Because we have seen those that we sometimes think are very close and it's there to serve our interests, they can turn back. You know, it's not all weather friends, as one of your colleagues once said. They are temperamental. The relationship is unstable and depend on their political calculations. But in Africa and India, that relationship is not calculated on geostrategic or advantages that you want to extract from the other, one against the other. The synergy is there, the joint effort to want to collaborate. So that, my dear friends, is also evidenced by the fact that the diplomatic footprint, we now have 47 African embassies here in India. You have 46 in Africa, so it's growing. The question is whether this partnership, whether this forum, in its current format, speaks to the realities and the importance and the strategic value of this partnership. Does it need to be transformed? Does it need to be institutionalized differently? What are we doing in terms of monitoring and evaluation? And I think there was a few recommendations that came from the panel in terms of how that can be done. The think tanks, how do you input into, because whether you look at BRICS, whether you look at G20, they have a think tank component, they have a women component, they have a business component. So it's time for us to reflect if we want to elevate this partnership. So dear colleagues, it also requires a robust monitoring. It requires also of us to have well-defined goals that are aligned to Agenda 2063. The Africa we want, to make sure that it is impactful, that it is measurable, and that there are significant or frequent monitoring of those targets, which we indicated should be measurable, and it should be in a wide variety of priority areas for the continent: infrastructure, beneficiation, ICT, pharma. These are all very critical importance, the building of ports and infrastructure. So those, dear colleagues, is the importance of revitalizing this important partnership, because we've seen the fragility in terms of others around the globe that are degrading the value of partnership. So on the 50th anniversary of the Bandung conference, a former president of ours addressed the gathering, and he said thus. He said that the gathering in Bandung came together, and it said that no longer should the people of Asia and Africa be condemned for all time to suffer the pain and indignity of poverty, deprivation, and underdevelopment, which resulted in these masses being described as the wretched of the earth. So people were looking down on us. Now people are looking up to us. If you see the number of flights to Delhi, I mean, one day the whole European Union and all the commissioners came here. And they are also doing the same to Africa. So all the roads now lead to India, and it leads to Africa. So we are no longer the wretched of the world. In fact, we are co-creators of this new world order that we want to see. And so may this historic gathering of 31 May bring both India and Africa together in partnership. May we, when we come together, reflect on what was said by Mbega. He said that, when we came together in Bandung, we did not count on the benevolence of others to bring outcomes. It was the confidence that in acting in unity that the people of Africa and Asia will strengthen and create a new world order born of their liberation and their ability to be makers of history. So let us walk together from the 31st of May into the future in hope and take our populations on a journey of prosperity and development. I think the hope of this world lay in Africa and Asia. And let us be the co-creators of a world order that is just, that is equitable, and where it is built on our common humanity. So all the best, dear colleagues, for this conference. Thank you for your attention, and we look forward to the outcome of the conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Cedrick. I could sense the positivism of Madiba in the way you said. Now, okay, can I ask the last speaker, Ruchita, who's had a very important role in creating this meeting today. So over to you, Ruchita.
Thank you, Suhas. It has been really interesting to be here today. And when you are speaking last, you realize that there's nothing more to say because everything has already been said. But I'll try and keep your interest alive for the next 8 minutes, and give my views as how to take India-Africa partnership forward. Now, India's partnership with Africa is not new. And we have heard earlier speakers talking about it, that the Africa partnership is demand-driven, it is guided by the African priorities, it is guided by the Indian philosophical concept of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, or the African concept of Ubuntu. It also fosters global cooperation. It is multilaterally. India has been there for Africa in terms of taking the African voices to the G20 through its chairman during its presidency in the G20 presidency. So what next? You find that the space of Africa's partnership with the rest of the world is become very crowded. There are a number of external powers who are interested in engaging with Africa. And each year, this space is really becoming crowded, and you find India will have to devise new methods, new ways of engaging with the African countries. So I would only talk about 5 mantras of India's engagement with African countries. And the first is energizing energy security partnership. Now this whole Iran conflict between US, Israel and Iran has brought the entire world to its feet, especially with respect to energy security. India in particular has realized that it's really vulnerable because of its dependence on West Asia for the fossil fuels, whether it's LPG, CNG or crude oil. So it's high time that India diversifies its sources of import of the fossil fuels. And Africa is a natural partner in that regard. Though India's energy partnership with Africa is not new, it's been on for more than 2.5 decades. But I think it's important that we put in more effort in engaging with African countries in this regard. Secondly, it's not as though the African countries themselves are not facing the same crisis. While there are many energy producers in Africa, but there are equal number of energy consumers in Africa who are in the same situation as India. So it is time that India develops a bigger partnership with the African countries in the energy field, which looks at both fossil fuel cooperation and cooperation in the renewables field. Because ultimately the world is moving the greener path, towards the greener path. So it's important that India and the African countries partner towards that. And the fact that 30% of the critical mineral reserves are in Africa make it really compulsory for India to engage with the African countries. But this partnership should be one which helps in the African countries benefiting from their energy resources. The Indian partnership should help in developing the energy infrastructure in the African countries, whether it's in the hydrocarbon sphere or in the renewable sphere. So that is my first point. The second is that we should look at enhancing maritime partnership with the African countries. Now, Indian Ocean brings India and Africa, at least the African littorals of the Indian Ocean together. Indian Ocean makes the African countries India's maritime neighbors. So enhancing energy and enhancing the maritime partnership is very important. You must remember that the maritime sphere is very important for India, and this is visible from the fact that Prime Minister Modi announced India's maritime policy, that is the Sagar Security and Growth for All, in Mauritius in 2015. And last year in 2025, he announced the Sagar 2.0, that is the Mahasagar initiative. So maritime cooperation is extremely important. India has been there for the African countries in various spheres, whether it is surveillance, whether it is the humanitarian and disaster reliefs in terms of dealing with or supporting the African in case of, say, cyclones in Mozambique, or floods in Madagascar, or tsunami in Somalia, or dealing with fighting the piracy in the Gulf of Aden. So India has been there, but this is something which has been there for the last more than around 2 decades. We need to go forward, because there are several ways in which India can expand its cooperation in the maritime sphere, and 2 areas come into my mind. First, there is a dire need for enhancing maritime domain awareness in the African countries, and India and Africa can work towards that through its in its policy. And also there is a need to look at maritime spatial planning in the entire maritime zone on Africa, because if you see where the Africa is placed in terms of the maritime sphere, there are 38 coastal countries in Africa, and there is a wealth of maritime wealth available for the African countries, and both India and Africa can cooperate in developing it further as per the African countries' interests. Third, much has been talked about this, that is expanding space technology cooperation, but I would like to mention here that India's partnership in space technology has been limited to capacity building largely, or some odd satellite launch for African countries. But unfortunately, when the African Space Agency was inaugurated last year in 2025 in Egypt, there was no representation from India in that event. So So I think the Indian government should take steps to expand the space technology partnership with the African countries. I'm really glad to know that ISRO has taken the step of engaging with the African diplomats in India, because there is a lot that India and Africa can do together, whether it's in terms of using satellite technology for improving agriculture or for weather forecasting or other areas. So fourth area that I'm talking of is enriching the knowledge partnership. Now, it is well known that African continent has a youthful population. About 60% of the people within Africa are below the age of 25. So education and skilling are a deep priority for the African countries, and India therefore needs to enhance its cooperation in capacity building in higher education with the African countries. In the last decade or so, India has provided something like 75,000 scholarships for the African countries, but I think much more needs to be done in terms of not just providing African students a scholarship, but also bringing in more Indian universities to the African continent. That is one way of expanding this opportunity further for the African students. We've seen the IIT Madras has opened a campus in Zanzibar, and there's the Indian Forensic Science University has opened a campus in Uganda, but they need to open these campuses in all the other regions in Africa too, if you want to take this relationship further. But it's also important what was mentioned earlier in terms of how India is engaging with the African students based in India, because there should be a lot of respect shown to the African students when they come to India to study, and there should be steps taken for by either the government, the Ministry of External Affairs, Ministry of Home Affairs, and the civil society organizations in making their visit to India peaceful and welcoming, so that this whole discussion about racism and some attacks on the African students are negated in future. Finally, I'll talk about extending greater finance to the African countries. This has been mentioned by the earlier speaker. But as the pop group ABBA said, money, money, money is the rich man's world. Yeah, it's the North which is dominating, which has most of the money, and they have not really extended much of their finances to the African countries. The kind of geopolitical situation that we are in today, the fact that we have conflicts going on in Europe, whether it's in Ukraine or in West Asia, the whole attention of the northern countries is more in terms of dealing with these conflicts rather than looking at supporting the African countries in their financial needs. So if India wants to move forward in this partnership, it will have to devise new and innovative mechanisms to provide finance to the African countries. The line of credit mechanism is not working, but a new mechanism may be forged by the Indian policy makers towards this direction. So I'll leave you with the thoughts that the India-Africa partnership needs to be inclusive. It needs to reflect the diversity of Africa and add to the African agency. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ruchita, for that overview. Now, you know that we are running out of time, but it's been such a patient audience. I mean, we must give them some opportunity to question the panel if they have any questions, or we leave out the comments because there is no time. But if there's any questions, and the panel would kindly pick up whatever they think is.
Sir, High Commissioner of Mozambique is also here.
Yeah. Oh, this is the High Commissioner designate of Mozambique.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Please.
Thank you very much. I have not much to say. I'm just listening and following up on all the speeches that I just had. And we are on the right way. Our head of state will be here, of course, for the summit. And all that was said, it comes in line with what we think about what the relationship and about the relationship India and Africa should be. Thank you so much.
Suhas, so my little
Just introduce yourself also, please.
University of Delhi. Dr. Manish, Department of African University of Delhi. So very quick remarks, because from last so many days I'm other listening or saying something. So this is the last conference before the government take over the whole in charge. The two things are very important, because as you know, you are a history student from Stephens College. One thing, and my right side, Mozambique High Commissioner is also here. So Africans in India, do you know, we have 100,000 Africans in India, but no one showcasing all those things during India-Africa Summit. I'll give to the recommendation to the higher authorities also. 100,000 Africans, and most of the people came from the Mozambique and the eastern part of Africa, the first thing. And the second thing, we are talking about the more line of credit, FDI, but in 100 meters away, Bahari Sons is there. I was wondering, because the morning IDSA conference, so no African book shop, no African dress shop, no African continental food. If you go to the Chinese food, Japanese food, or the any food, but these are the lacking. First, we have to build this kind of infrastructure, and after that, we will the trade and investment. This is my quick remark, because my background is history. So these are the ideas, some ideas with me. Thank you.
Good. Anybody else? Anybody else?
Yeah.
Just introduce yourself.
Sure. Good evening, Binay Gupta. I am the founder and CEO of Geosynthesis. We are a geoeconomics and geopolitical advisory firm. My question is to Ambassador Malki. Typically, in such forums, the discussions tend to gravitate towards top-down prescriptions in terms of identifying a set of vertical sectors, and then coming up with recommendations, ideas around this is how growth can happen. Instead of a tops-down, or alongside a tops-down approach, in your view, will it not be also productive for a bottoms-up approach in terms of, okay, facilitating a conducive environment for private sector actors from both countries, both India and Africa, to figure out pathways of cooperation, collaboration, and growth?
One more, and then that will be it. Yeah. Yeah.
The way we are talking about culture and human-to-human relationship, people-to-people relationship, I think it's high time for India to have our university campuses in any part of Africa, or medical institution, or IIT, so that we can have a relationship in this way, science and technology, art and culture, and like that. Thank you.
Anybody else? We close. Anybody else before the Malki answers that? Okay. Huh? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I think there is a simple way to look at it, and there are complicated way to look at it. So when the summit is the crowning of complete consultation that starts from the ground, the grassroots. I can't tell you how many meetings we have had with the ministry, how many meetings the ministry had with the commission. And then basically we have two documents. people are much aware of the Delhi Declaration because it is the political declaration. But there is also the mechanism of following up mechanism and then the sectors which are to be decided. So as a businessman, I advise you to go through the sectors which have been selected by both regions in which the collaboration will be much more included, because under each emblem you can get also lines of credit. So it is very, very organized. When it comes to the business summit, okay? So jointly there will be as well, there is the political summit in which the heads of states and governments and leaders, they are talking their national priorities, but also they gather only to, what do I say, to adopt documents. But at the same time, from the 28th to 31st as well, there will be the business summit. The business summit has almost the same emphasis, the same structure, like that one in which I think as a business person, it's led by the FICI, I believe. You can always approach them and then see the sectors which can interest of you, and probably they will identify few of the people. There will be also sessions for the ministers of economic portfolios who would be available, not in all countries, but few countries will have their business communities. I'm sure that for instance, the president of Mozambique will bring few ministers in the business community, because the basic of this India is how to boost investments, trade, and between the two sides. So the business part is, in fact, the older part of the summit. It has nothing, because politically we always deal bilaterally, because it's always difficult to find the consensus politically around one single thing in the world, especially what's happening with the challenges. But the business is a very big part, if not the biggest part in the business community. Thank you, sir.
The High Commissioner of Tanzania would like to say anything in conclusion?
Thank you, sir. I don't have anything to say in addition, but I concur with all the recommendations which were put forward with the previous speakers. And I'm hoping and I'm sure that the summit will come out with concrete recommendations for implementation. Thank you.
Cedrick, do you have the last word?
I think the summit presents us with the opportunity to reset the relationship, to galvanize it even further, to make it more productive, and perhaps to look into institutions that will assist us in taking this important relationship forward. Thank you.
In terms of the bottoms-up approach, I think that there has been, at the think tanks level, we've had engagement over the last 1 year with various sectors, people who are dealing with each and every sector, and those have been coming from the people who are really dealing with that, So I think those inputs are already there with the government on that. And secondly, Dr. Manish mentioned a very important point in terms of the presence of African diaspora in India. Not many people are aware that they have been there for centuries, They have assimilated within Indian population now. Very difficult for people to, say that they are Africans or they are Indians. So I think this is something which really needs to be pushed off, and people at large should be aware that India and Africa are interconnected, not just by all these political and economic issues, but also people, and they've been there for centuries in India.
So, thank you very much, all of you. Been very patient audience, and we will be preparing the recommendations of this seminar from what all the panelists have said, and we'll then to the missions we'll mail that also, and it'll be inclusive on that. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. This whole program has been webcast, so live, so that you can go to the channel IIC programs and view it whenever you want it. It's in the archives now.
And it's all in order to your children.
That's my card.